I have really bloomed in the last 12 months. I have transformed my self-concept so much, and I want to share with you today what changes I made to my self-concept this year so that you can feel inspired to change your own. Hello, my loves! Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Lorena. I'm a somatic self-concept and identity coach, and I support you in bridging the gap between who you currently are or perceive yourself as and who you desire to be or become. Today we're going to do a reflection on the last year. I'm going to share my top 4 self-concept shifts that I have made this year. And I hope that this inspires you. I'm going to share some lessons that I drew from that so that you can take them into the next year with you when you work on changing your own self-concept. Before we go into this, I would love to hear from you in the comments. What is something that you would like to change about your self-concept in the coming year? What is a version of you that you desire to step into? Let me know so I can read it and I can cheer you on. So let's get into it. My top favorite self-concept shifts of the year. Number 1, I became a gym girly. So I always wanted to be one of these girls who loves going to the gym and gets up at 5 a.m. and just smashes their workout. And I never thought I could be that. To be honest, I have a whole video on body image, which you may want to watch because it tells my entire story of how much I struggled with my body image, how much I struggled with disordered eating, with my perception of myself. And I also hated working out. Even in kindergarten, I hated working out. I was not somebody who would jump on the trampoline as a kid. I would hide in the corner with a book. So I never saw myself as somebody who was athletic in any way. That changed a little bit over the years because I made myself, work out, and I learned to enjoy exercising to an extent, but I still didn't see myself as a gym girly. Deep down, I would often still identify with being somebody who doesn't enjoy working out. And something just clicked this year where I committed to changing this. I really wanted to prioritize the way I felt in my body and with my health. And I decided to not just go to the gym, but become somebody who loves it. Become somebody for whom this is just a natural part of their state of being and their way of living. And this happened so fast, but I'm not saying it was easy. It wasn't as simple as just making the decision. I actually had severe gym anxiety. The thought of setting up equipment on my own and working out there and then people looking at me, although I know nobody's looking, that created anxiety in me. So I had to really work through that, and I had to take it step by step, and I had to create a system for me that would make it attainable for me. And I had to work on my own beliefs about myself and my own self-concept when it comes to the gym. The second shift I made was I became magnetic and I opened up to love. So what I'm basically trying to say is that I completely transformed my dating and relationship patterns, and I made a whole separate video on this a few weeks ago if you want a real deep dive into how I did this and what changed. But obviously that whole process didn't happen overnight. That wasn't a 1-year process even. It took some time for me to transform my very anxious attachment to a secure attachment. And in the meantime, I had a blip where I became very avoidant. And this year I'd really set the intention to open myself up to love. And it was really beautiful. Such a beautiful experience. And it really came through all the work that I'd already done on my self-concept. I had healed so much of my trauma. I had resolved so many of my subconscious patterns. And I really worked even harder on this in the last couple of years, which is, by the way, all the stuff that I teach and that I coach my clients through in Recreate Yourself. It's all about a really solid self-concept transformation that goes beyond just trying on one identity. It's really about breaking the patterns and resolving the emotional charges that led you to these patterns and made you become who you currently see yourself as, even if that's not really who you are. But what then happened through that is this year when I set myself the intention, I'm going to be somebody who's open to love. I'm going to open myself back up. It created a magnetism because of all the work I'd done on my self-concept prior to this. And I have so many success stories that are similar from my clients as well. One of my long-term clients this year created such a beautiful relationship that she'd been working so hard on calling in, and I'm so proud of her for transforming her attachment into a very secure attachment as well. And another one of my clients got married, which I'm so excited about. Anyways, let me move on. Getting emotional. The third shift I made, I didn't only open myself up to love, I also opened myself up to really beautiful, expansive female friendships. I really wanted sisterhood this year. I really wanted community. And if you've been following me for a while, you may know that over the last few years, I had to release a lot of friendships, a lot of relationships, and it was very, very hard. But ultimately it had to end because they just weren't aligned anymore. And the consequence of that is that for quite a while I felt quite lonely, and I was alone for a couple of years or so. It was only last year that I slowly made friends again, but since then everything changed again, and this year it's really been blooming, and I've really been feeling more open to sisterhood, and I feel like next year it will be even more, because it's still growing. But that took time too, because I was alone for a while, and sometimes it's better to be alone than to be with the wrong people, 1000%, because that's just going to make you feel out of alignment and out of integrity, and like you can't be yourself. The problem that I had with a lot of the friendships that I had to let go of was that I didn't feel like I was seen for who I had become. I was seen for, or I was perceived as a past version of me. And that's going to happen. When you transform your self-concept, you're going to lose people. Either they grow with you, or if they don't, or they grow into a different direction, it's not about better or worse, then they might leave. Or you might leave. This is also something that I often have to help and get to help clients navigate when they transform their self-concept. And it's one of the reasons why I have a strong community aspect in Recreate Yourself as well, because community is so important. It's so important on this journey to not be alone, because at times you're otherwise going to feel alone. So if you're doing it all by yourself, it's going to make it even harder. And it all paid off, because this year I made some really beautiful friends that I'm really grateful for, and they're really starting to bloom. And the fourth self-concept shift I made, I became much more of a leader this year. So this has to do with my business expansion. That was an intention of mine, and it played out completely differently from how I thought it would, but I'm very happy with how it played out. I have never felt as aligned with my message and with my business as I do now. I've done a lot of work on my own visibility, on my own subconscious beliefs. I invested a lot in my own personal healing so that I can show up better in my business as well, so that I can serve my clients better. And it really paid off, because I've become a lot more unapologetic in what and how I share. I called in so many beautiful, amazing clients over the last year that I'm so grateful for. And I also had a lot of challenges this year. A lot of them. Some of them were so intense, that I know a couple of years ago, I don't think I would have been able to deal with them in the way that I have now. So here's the leadership. But you know what? These challenges partly came through the intention of wanting to be more of a leader and wanting to expand. Because as hard as the challenges were, they really catapulted me forward. So that's a message here, to not try and avoid the challenges, because they may just be the way through. If you're like, how do I even start with transforming my self-concept? I've got some lessons for you for all the shifts that I've made. And I also have a free self-concept mastery blueprint, which is linked in the description below, where you'll get a really good overview of the framework I teach, and you also get a daily checklist so that you can get started with some practical steps. So let's dive into the lessons. What did I learn from these self-concept shifts? Lesson number one is that the most important thing is to have the foundation in your self-concept so that you can make any changes in your life with a lot more ease, because that's exactly what brought these shifts in with so much ease. Despite the fact that I said, these are the changes that I made this year, the only reason I was able to make them within a year is because the foundation had been set. I had worked on embodying a different version of myself already. I had changed my self-concept already. I've evolved my self-concept so much, and I'm constantly doing it. And so it happened fast, especially the magnetism in relationships that would not have happened this quickly if I hadn't created the foundation in my self-concept and I hadn't healed my trauma and done all of these things prior to this. People will tell you to just decide to be that version of yourself, or just practice embodying being that version of yourself that you want to be. But it's not that easy. Just deciding only works when you have the foundation, when there's nothing in the way, when there's nothing resisting it. And we really prioritize this in Recreate Yourself as well. Almost the entire program, the entire journey is about building the foundation in your self-concept. It's only really the last 2 weeks that you're doing active embodiment and active manifestation work, because it's not necessary, or it's not even useful unless you have the foundation in your self-concept. That's why it's a long-term container. That's why this is all a long-term journey, but it's also a life-changing journey. Lesson number 2, it's all more about the becoming. It's more about the embodiment and the identity than it is about the action. Sometimes action can help you get into that embodiment, and obviously I will never keep you from taking action, because sometimes we need to act before we're ready. If we want change, we often need to act before we think we can. If we always let our thoughts and our beliefs and our brain hold us back from taking action, then you're never going to do anything. But what I mean by this is that I couldn't use pure will in order to achieve this. So for example, with the gym scenario, if I had just told myself I go to the gym this many times a week and I go at this time, and I had set this framework for myself, it may have worked, but I wouldn't have become that version of myself. It wouldn't have become a natural part of my being, of my identity. I would have had to use willpower in order to achieve something that I could instead very easily achieve once I transformed my self-concept in order to align with that. Because once I became someone who loves going to the gym, now I don't need to make myself. Now I am sad when I don't get to go. Lesson number 3, embrace challenges and embrace discomfort. In order to do any of these things, in order to become more of a leader in my business, in order to overcome my gym anxiety, in order to transform my relationship patterns, meet new people, make new friends, I had to process pain. I had to work through my trauma. I had to meet obstacles and be ready to face obstacles. I had to face the challenges. I couldn't avoid them. I couldn't just try to run from discomfort. And I'm immensely grateful for my mentors during this time, my business mentors in my business, and then my mentors for my personal stuff, because it made it so much easier to not have to go through it alone when things get challenging, because that's life. Life gets challenging, and sometimes that's a real gift, as hard as it is, because it's exactly what will help you evolve. Lesson number 4, keep believing even when things seem impossible. As I said with the friendship example, there was a good hot minute where I was alone. And it would have been very easy for me to make that mean that I'm now lonely and that I now don't have anyone anymore, and to create some stories for myself, but I didn't. I actually really enjoyed that time, and I wasn't lonely even though I was alone. And the fact that I just kept believing even when there wasn't any proof yet made it so much more possible for me to then meet new people, because I wasn't holding on to the old anymore. And in the same vein, lesson number 5, don't be afraid to let go. Don't be afraid to lose people, for example. If you avoid the loss, you also avoid the gain. Something has to leave in order for you to embody and receive something new. I've honestly never felt so good and never felt so in alignment, and I actually feel like I say this every day. Or every year, or every month. I feel like constantly things are improving, and I'm really grateful for that. Life just keeps getting better and better, and I'm really excited for next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. And I really feel that this year has been a year of blooming. Please share your takeaways from this video in the comments and claim what version of yourself you are stepping into next year. Claim it, claim it. Put it in writing. I'll see you in the new year, and in next week's video we're gonna explore some misconceptions about ego death and what ego death has to do with your self-concept, why it's necessary, and what it really means. Tune in then, and I'll see you next week.